If you've been feeling lately that staying informed isn't just a civic duty anymore, but more like some kind of cognitive endurance training, you are definitely not alone.
Not at all.
It feels like the world is refreshing itself every 6 seconds, usually in all caps.
Right, and it's demanding that you care deeply about everything all at once. Before your coffee even has a chance to cool down, it's just exhausting.
It is. It's unsustainable.
And that's what our deep dive is all about today. Our mission really is to extract some actionable strategies for you to move past that state of perpetual alert.
So what's our source material?
We dove into the insights of a seasoned global traveler, someone who spends their life navigating different cultures and, different news ecosystems. And we found out how their time abroad completely rewired their approach to consuming news.
And this isn't about checking out. It's not about sticking your head in the sand.
No, the trick, according to this material, is not withdrawal. It's a very disciplined kind of curation.
I think we have to talk about the core paradox of modern information here. Because awareness is crucial, right? We need to be engaged global citizens.
Of course.
But the constant, unfiltered exposure, it leads directly to fatigue, or even worse, something the source material calls numbness disguised as sophistication.
That phrase is such a core insight, this numbness. It's when you can recite 10 facts about a faraway crisis, but you feel absolutely nothing for the people involved.
You become like a highly sophisticated robot.
Exactly. You can rattle off statistics, but you're fundamentally detached. Our whole objective here is to move you away from that relentless refreshing, which is just anxiety, to a place of, let's call it selective, insightful presence.
So staying genuinely engaged, but without letting the noise just camp out permanently in your nervous system.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of volume versus context. That seems to be the central conflict.
It is.
Because there was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, where staying informed meant, the morning paper, maybe the evening news.
A radio bulletin on the hour. You had built-in pauses.
Exactly. Built-in pauses. Now we are just bombarded, and we tell ourselves this lie, this specific lie, that if we just read one more article or follow one more expert...
one more explainer video.
Right. Then clarity will finally arrive.
And the traveler's experience tells us that clarity rarely, if ever, arrives from volume alone. What you get is usually just profound fatigue.
So we fall into this trap of thinking that knowing more automatically means knowing better.
We do. But the source material makes a really sharp distinction here. And it's crucial. Wisdom is not about the sheer volume of material you consume. It's about the context you bring to it.
That distinction changes everything. If I'm reading, say, 20 reactive articles about some minor political skirmish in a country I know nothing about, I'm getting 20 data points, but I have zero understanding. I'm just accumulating anxiety.
Precisely. If, on the other hand, you read one deep contextual piece on the history, the geography, the economic drivers of that region, the context, that one article lets you filter all the noise from the other 19.
So you stop treating every headline like an isolated explosion.
And you start seeing it as a predictable part of a larger, evolving story.
So the solution here is, it feels counterintuitive. It's to choose fewer sources, but give them more respect, more of your attention.
It's a move towards self-regulation. You have to protect your own mind. When everything the news delivers feels urgent, then nothing really is. Nothing except your own ability to think clearly.
Okay, so this is where the traveler's experience becomes the catalyst. Why does something like sitting in a foreign cafe or waiting at a border crossing with, as the source says, real stakes? Why does that fundamentally change how you read a news story about that place?
Because the headlines stop being abstract concepts. When you have concrete, lived experience, even something as simple as struggling with a foreign transit system or watching people queue up for basic goods, you realize something fundamental.
Which is what?
That most people are not living inside some high-minded theoretical ideology. They are living inside systems.
Transport systems, food systems, healthcare systems?
Exactly. Systems that are either functional or failing, or, in some cases, even predatory. And that perspective just instantly grounds the political drama we're all reading about every day.
It creates an immediate sense of scale.
It does. A traveler who focuses on systems isn't just reading about who won the latest parliamentary vote. They're asking why the local power grid fails every Tuesday.
Or how the agricultural supply chain actually gets food to the market.
Yes. These are the daily realities for most of the world, and they often get completely obscured by the noise of personality-driven politics.
And travel teaches proportion. It just shows you the sheer size of the world. The source noted this striking insight that, entire countries are barely mentioned in the news.
Unless something explodes.
Right. Unless something explodes
Yeah.
or there's a huge natural disaster.
And that silence is often more important than the noise. It prompts the sophisticated news consumer, the traveler, to start asking much better questions.
Instead of just absorbing the framing, they start questioning it, asking things like, who benefits from this specific framing?
Yeah, or why is the reporter only focusing on this one isolated aspect of a massive country?
Whose voice is missing, whose perspective from on the ground is just not here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It forces you to stop seeing international politics as a sporting event, Team A versus Team B.
And start seeing it as a complex travel story.
A story shaped by deep foundational layers. History, geography, economics, and just the daily compromises of millions of real people. It's a narrative that's so much deeper and slower moving than a daily score update suggests.
So if we take that traveler's mindset, slower, deeper, more focused on listening, and we apply it to our daily routine, that's going to require some hard, practical boundaries.
It does.
What specific rules did the sources recommend for this?
Okay, so first and foremost, the boundary is time. The material is very explicit. Check the news only once or twice a day. Total.
Okay.
But the non-negotiable rule is to never check first thing in the morning.
That seems so minor, but I can feel the wisdom in that immediately. Why is that specific rule so important?
Because the world can wait until you're fully awake and, mentally prepared to engage with it. If you open your phone and immediately consume panic or outrage, you're essentially borrowing anxiety from distant, complex issues.
And you're preloading it into your nervous system before you've even had a chance to organize your own day.
Yes, it sets a tone of emotional reactivity for the entire day. You lose the morning, which is often your best window for clear thinking.
Protect the morning. I like that. So beyond time, we need some quality control. The material had 3 sharp rules for reading.
It did. The first rule is about avoidance. You have to rigorously avoid opinion, that is just masquerading as reporting. Analysis, deep synthesis, that's incredibly useful. But the material warns us specifically against rage dressed up as insight.
Let's focus on that phrase for a second. Rage dressed up as insight. What does that trap actually look like?
It looks like those high-emotion, low-information columns or broadcasts that are designed mostly to generate clicks and reinforce your existing biases.
So it's emotionally addictive.
It's very addictive because it validates outrage, but it doesn't actually advance understanding. If a piece makes you instantly feel this profound sense of moral superiority or crippling anger, you should probably ask if you're consuming insight or just emotional fuel.
Right. And if you're emotionally compromised, your ability to process any real context just plummets.
Yep.
Okay. What about the problem of trying to read everything? The whole breadth versus depth issue.
That's the second rule. Read long, not wide. The source material really emphasizes this. One thoughtful, highly researched, in-depth piece provides exponentially more understanding than 20 reactive news briefs that just skim the surface.
Because that single long piece gives you the framework.
Yes. If you read it well, then all the subsequent little updates start to make sense. Instead of just generating new confusion, it equips you.
And the third rule, it connects us right back to the traveler's core experience.
It does. Rule number 3 is to pair news with lived experience.
Yeah.
When you read about a place, even if you only spent 3 days there 5 years ago, ground the story in that memory.
Think about the streets you walked, the faces you saw.
The conversations you had. This kind of anchoring keeps your empathy intact and it keeps panic in check. It's the quiet power of contextual news. The reality on the ground is bigger and slower and more complicated than any headline.
And this is why the material highlights the value of following journalists who actually live where they report.
Oh, absolutely. Instead of relying only on fly-in correspondence, when you read journalists who are navigating those systems daily, who live the consequences of the policies they're reporting on, the tone just fundamentally changes.
How so?
The source material notes that the drama fades, reality sharpens. The reporter isn't performing for a distant audience, they're just describing their world.
So if the traveler's mindset is our compass, then what are the maps and the gear we need? This brings us to the actual toolkit, the curated list of sources.
This is the practical step. You need a rigorous, intentional system. The material developed this list by prioritizing, reporting over rhetoric, context over clicks.
And the strategy is simple. It's a mix and match approach.
Exactly. You pick one wire service, one global broadcaster, and one long-form source. Everything else is optional. It's just supplemental noise or data.
Okay, let's break down the function of each of those. Let's start with wire services. These are for the daily facts, the data points without the spin. Why are they so essential?
They're the purest data delivery system you can find. Wire services exist to sell raw information to thousands of other news outlets. Their product is neutrality.
Because if they insert spin, they lose clients.
They lose clients on either side of the political spectrum, so they're your essential factual baseline. You'd look at Reuters for really straightforward reporting, or the Associated Press, AP News. Use these for your quick morning check. Just the facts.
Got it. Next up, global broadcasters. These are for framing, for getting that broader international lens on events that might not be so U.S. or Western-centric.
And they're vital for avoiding, well, provincialism. The options here include the BBC News World section, which is known for its broad lens and restrained tone.
Okay.
Then there's France 24 for a strong European perspective, or DW News from Germany, which is often very calm, very explanatory. And of course, Al Jazeera English, which has incredibly strong Global South coverage.
So those give you the alternative perspectives to counterbalance whatever national outlets you might be consuming. That leaves the heavy hitters, the long-form and context builders.
This is where you allocate that precious read-long time. These sources are designed for big-picture synthesis, for system analysis.
What are some examples?
We're talking about The Guardian, specifically their in-depth investigative sections, the Financial Times for understanding geopolitics and global economics, The Economist for big-picture trends, and then Foreign Affairs for really deep geopolitical context.
I really appreciate that the sources didn't stop there. They also included a category specifically for low-drama, data-focused sources.
Yes. These deliver context in its purest form. Think of something like Our World in Data for global statistics and historical visualizations.
Or the Pew Research Center.
Right, the Pew Research Center for Nonpartisan Global Surveys, and the Council on Foreign Relations Backgrounders, which are just plain language explainers on incredibly complex issues. They're pure context, totally divorced from the daily anxiety cycle.
And that all ties back perfectly to the personal application the traveler used. They subscribed to a major outlet, like the New York Times, but used it very selectively.
Right, only for its depth, for its background on systems. They would specifically stick to the world and investigative pieces while actively avoiding the constant alerts and all the opinion columns.
So they're using the depth of that outlet's reporting, but without absorbing the noise of its churn.
That's the disciplined approach in action. They use it not to follow the minute-by-minute drama, but to understand the background and, critically, how that U.S. perspective affects the global dialogue. It's highly selective.
It's selective presence, not total knowledge. And that brings us to the synthesis, really. The goal of this whole process isn't to know everything, which we now know is impossible and probably bad for you.
Right.
The goal is to shift from that impossible task to the achievable and sustainable task of selective presence.
We want you to, as the source says, remain human while knowing some things well. If you can do that, you protect your curiosity, you maintain your empathy, and you avoid cynicism. Those are the real measures of success.
So what does this all mean for us right now moving forward? Let's close with those final simple rules the traveler used to measure their own consumption habits.
Okay, the first one is this. If the news you are consuming, whatever the source, makes you feel cynical and detached, that is a clear sign to immediately step back. Shut it down.
And if it makes you curious, if it prompts you to ask better questions,
that's the sign to lean in. That's when you read long.
And maybe most importantly, if the influx of information makes you afraid and sends you spiraling.
The advice is very simple. Go for a walk. Or open a map.
The map is the final synthesis.
It is. Travel reminds us that the world is always bigger than any single crisis, but it's also more connected than we think. Perspective, like travel itself, works best in measured, intentional doses.
You don't need every street to understand a city.
You don't. You just need a good mat and the time to walk it. That's the deliberate perspective you can start curating today.